Daisy.
And I'm Terri.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 236. And this week it is Terri's turn to share something. Terri, what do you have?
Well, Daisy, this is a little bit of a different week because I don't have a podcast episode to share with you. I don't have a newsletter or a book. But I have something that you and I talk about in our own lives in a way that I think could be helpful to listeners. And that is, and I first started thinking about this specifically around jigsaw puzzles, but I think you have something to also broaden it a little bit. But I was thinking about the idea that you and I both really like to do jigsaw puzzles. And we sometimes talk about the problem of liking doing jigsaw puzzles so much and ways that it can interfere. And so I thought maybe today we could process that a little bit and then talk about maybe justifying for ourselves why it's a good thing that we use jigsaw puzzles.
That's interesting because I got out of the habit of, and when we say jigsaw puzzles, I think you were talking about getting back into the real life actual pieces jigsaw puzzles, but I know when we've talked about jigsaw puzzles before, it's doing them online on a screen, and I'd sort of given them a rest for quite a while, but interestingly enough, I've started doing them again a bit in the last week or two. So yes, very timely.
Good. I know we sometimes chat before we record, and sometimes we chat for quite a while before we record. And today you were just talking about a day recently where you spent some of your relaxation time doing jigsaw puzzles. So you're right. I have for years now only been able to do online jigsaw puzzles because I never had a space where I could do physical, tangible jigsaw puzzles. And, you know, I'm a connoisseur of puzzles a little bit. So I searched around and I found one website that I really like. And every day they give you 2 new choices of puzzles to do. And I'm picky. If it's like a cartoony one, I won't do it. If it's too easy, I won't do it. So I like puzzles to be a certain way. But this one also does a mystery puzzle where they show you only one small portion of it. So you don't know what the rest of the puzzle looks like. And they also have a year's worth of daily puzzles. So, you know, if you don't like the 1 or 2 that are up for today, you can go back and choose from hundreds of others. And I've done a lot of them on this one website.
I think we use the same website. In fact, I think it was you who told me about this website because, yes, that sounds familiar. And we have talked about, we should share actually our favorite types of puzzles because we have quite different tastes, I think.
It's funny because every now and then I will take a screenshot of one of the puzzles when I complete it to send to you. And then, of course, I always forget to send it to you. Because any of them that are set in the UK, I want to say, Daisy, have you been here? This is so beautiful. Or recently, there have been a few that are set in Colorado, and I want to send you a picture like, this is what it looks like here. Do you use Jigsaw Explorer?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah, because I recognize that. I think it's the Friday is the mystery one. Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I settled on that website is that the pieces are the most, I don't know what you would say, visually they look like real puzzle pieces.
They do, yeah.
On certain websites that I've gone to, they're distorted a little bit, or they don't move easily, or they click in a weird way. Something is off about them, but I really like this one. But one of the challenges I have with jigsaw puzzles is that I can get very hooked. So I have kind of a morning routine, and I know we talk about morning routines, and all of the kind of self-help gurus talk about the importance of your morning routine. And until I just read some of these things, I've been feeling kind of guilty about my jigsaw puzzle morning routine because I feel like I should be doing something more productive. I should be doing something that stimulates my brain or something. I don't know. But what I do is I get up and I make my coffee and I sit down with my laptop and I do a puzzle. And if I can squeak out a little more time, I start another one. And sometimes if I don't have a client or a meeting first thing, I'll do a third one. And some of them can take me maybe a half hour and some can take a lot longer. So it kind of depends. But at any time during the day, if I have a few minutes, I'm drawn to go back over to the jigsaw puzzle and complete the one that I've been working on. And sometimes I will do them at night in bed. I know that's horrible for my melatonin and all of those things, but I feel addicted to it. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to get this one done and then I'll go to bed. And sometimes that actually helps me fall asleep because I will suddenly realize I don't even remember placing the last 5 pieces, and then I'll close it and go to sleep.
Do you end up having dreams about putting jigsaws together? I do. If I've been playing too much on one of the apps, it often makes it into my dreams. I have weird app dreams.
I feel like I don't even know if I'm going to explain this in a way that makes sense for anyone, but I don't think of doing jigsaw puzzles in my sleep. It's not like the jigsaw puzzles appear, but the putting something together.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it comes up in an abstract way.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like you're not dreaming about yourself doing jigsaws, but yeah, almost the images in your dream sort of connect like a jigsaw. Yeah, weird, isn't it?
But kind of interesting as we start talking about some of the benefits of jigsaw puzzles, maybe why that's happening. You also brought up another thing related.
Yeah, I did mention earlier that I've got back into jigsaws a bit. I do have to limit the time that I play on them because I do find them a huge time drain if I'm not careful. I think you must do your jigsaws a lot faster than I do mine. How many pieces do you set yours at?
Oh, that's a great point. The website that both Daisy and I use allows you to change how many pieces are in the puzzle. So you can do 45 pieces or more. I always set mine for 300 or the closest to 300 that I can get.
Oh, okay. I feel a bit better now because, yeah, I set mine for at least double that. I'm thinking, how did she get them done so quickly?
Ooh, now I just learned I could slow myself down a little bit and just make them bigger.
Yes, well, it's more of a challenge, more pieces, but I have a different morning app routine because I like puzzles. I've always liked puzzles. And I think I've probably mentioned on the podcast before that I got into the whole, and I've forgotten the name of it, Wordle, that became crazy popular at one point, didn't it? And everyone was posting their Wordle scores. And then I got really annoyed with it. It kept getting words with, there was usually a double towards the end, and there were so many variations that you could have had. And there probably was a much smarter way of figuring out quicker, but I just got so cross with it. And it was just making me grumpy for the rest of the day. So I stopped doing it. Like, that's it, that's enough. But in that process, I found some other ones which I do actually really enjoy. So there's one that's called Waffle, and this is one of the ones that I do every day. And that is, well, a waffle shape made up with overlaying 5-letter words in the shape of, you've guessed it, a waffle. And all the letters are there and you have to move them around to make the words work. And you have to do it. The challenge is, I've very rarely failed to get it. So you get that little bit of a dopamine hit from getting a win, which I guess is what I was getting a bit stamp my foot over with Wordle. So it's very rare that you don't win at it. But the challenge is to do it with a certain number of moves left. And I think it's 5. If you can do it with 5 moves left, that's the best you can do. But anything more than 0 is a win. And it's pretty quick. It's not something that takes much time. And it's just a nice little thing to do. So I do that every day. And then there's another one, I forget what it's called, but it's there are color blocks that you have to get rid of under a certain number of moves. And that's another really quick one. And then there's one that I do when I'm having my brunch, I suppose you'd call it. I don't tend to eat my first meal of the day until about lunchtime. When I have a little bit more time, which is called squaredle, which is in some ways, and no, it's not really like the waffle. It's a bit like a word search. You have to find a certain number of words. But again, they're quite quick, really. So they're not too much of a time drain. The other app that I have kept that is also quite quick is a colouring in app. I think I've mentioned that before. Mm-hmm. And that's also very addictive and can be quite quick. You can do one of those in a few minutes. But it's just quite nice. It's like a paint by numbers. You fill in the different ones. And the challenge is that there are quite often tiny little bits that are difficult to find. But that's, and you build the picture. It's almost like a jigsaw in a way. It's not, but it forms itself. It colours in the picture. You've got a black and white picture and it gradually colours in. And then it plays it back. It animates it afterwards. So you can follow through the sequence of numbers as they give them to you, or you can choose to do it a different way. So, you could fill the person in first and the background afterwards, or vice versa. You can play with it because it then makes a little video of you colouring it in at the end. So depending which order you've done it in will depend how it plays at the end.
Nice.
So they're quite fun, quick ones. The problem with jigsaws, and this is what I found, is that I end up spending a bit too much time if I'm not careful. So I have to sort of stop it again. There's that little bit of a sort of addictive side to these things if I'm not careful.
And I think that makes sense as we talk about some of the benefits of them. Part of what benefits us by doing them also can make them addictive. So we'll talk about that in a second. So Daisy, I'm aware as we're talking that there are a lot of noises going on in my background that I'm pretty sure are not able to be edited out. And I always like to let you know that because, folks, there are going to be some weird little sounds going on. There's a lawnmower outside my window over on this side, and now my neighbor seems to be sawing something in his driveway. I've made this such a quiet room, but I cannot make my neighbors comply. So good luck with editing, Daisy. So I have recently gone back to doing actual jigsaw puzzles, and it's been very exciting for me because we got a fairly long and expandable dining room table. And in my mind, my partner's like, oh, how many people could we have to dinner? And I'm thinking, how big of a puzzle could I do? And those two things don't really collide well. So I've gone back to doing actual jigsaw puzzles, and that's been really rewarding. But weirdly, I don't do them as a morning routine. I'm very tied to doing that online. But anyway, touching on what you said, one of the problems for me is that I will do them almost at the cost of anything else. Like, it'll be time to start making dinner and I'm sitting at the puzzle. It'll be time to go to bed and I'm sitting at the puzzle. My partner will go to bed and I will stay up on that puzzle for 2 more hours in ways that I didn't do online. It's a little bit different. I can just shut the laptop and go to bed, but I can't get up from that table. So I definitely have kind of reawakened my love of jigsaw puzzles now by getting to do them again, physically do the puzzle.
What do you do on a practical level because presumably it takes quite a while to do a puzzle of that size and you can't just leave it set up the whole time. Do you have like a mat or something that you can move it away?
It depends a little bit how long it takes me if it's a work week day, I'm only going to get a section done. But sometimes on the weekend, I can knock out a puzzle day and a half. But we are planning to purchase a puzzle table. So it's a little bit of a wooden Lazy Susan that you do the puzzle on one level and then almost like little flat drawers come out on the side to hold all the pieces.
Oh, cool.
So it doesn't take up as much space on the table. And again, it's a pretty long table. So we would be able to eat on one half of the table and I could keep a puzzle on the other half. But currently, we don't eat at the table that often. And if we do, it's just 2 of us on one far end. Some people I know do like just put down like some kind of a cloth, a tablecloth or something. Mostly we don't use our table all that often, so it's a perfect puzzling area. Otherwise, it just collects everything that we carry and don't know where to put right away. It ends up on the dining room table. So the puzzle almost helps not do that. But I thought it might be helpful, Daisy, for us to talk a little bit about why is doing jigsaw puzzles something that's good for you? And one resource that I'm looking at talks about that it improves our cognitive skills. I think we're all up for that. It can help with your memory. It can help with your short-term memory because you have to kind of hang on to what am I looking for as you start looking at the pieces. And when I get it, where is it going to fit? How will it fit? And that is probably even more so when you're doing the physical puzzle versus the online, at least the website that you and I use, because they're already set as they're going to go in. You don't have to turn them and manipulate them. But if you have the actual physical pieces sitting on the table in front of you, there could be upside down. Some could be horizontal versus vertical, things like that. So they help with short-term memory. That's an important benefit that many of us would like.
Yeah, and it's interesting I wonder how many, I suppose it depends on the benefit, if there's a difference between the physical and online. Or maybe a different degree, like you say, because they are all the right way. And there are kind of cheats, aren't there, with that puzzle? If you go near one that it's meant to go to, it tells you.
I don't get that with the physical one. No little sound or no little visual tells me yes. So they help with memory and specifically short-term memory, which I think is great. Better mood. Working on jigsaw puzzles, Andrew Huberman cue, it releases dopamine.
Right.
You want to find that piece, so you have a motivation to find it. And when you do, you get a dopamine hit, and then another one. And this, I think, is one of the reasons why you and I get so motivated to do them and have a hard time pulling ourselves away. It's a dopamine hit. And they're not huge dopamine hits, but it has a little bit of dopamine and that keeps us going. Even when you're really tired and you should go to bed because you're going to get up in the morning. Oh, that one more little dopamine hit. So it's interesting that one way that it helps us also can complicate our use of them. Jigsaw puzzles improve problem solving, analytic skills, and attention to detail.
I suppose it would.
Man, if I had little kids right now, I'd be getting them into jigsaw puzzles. Like, who wouldn't want to help them with attention to detail, their analytic skills, and problem solving? So looking for the pieces and knowing kind of how it's going to have to work, it makes us have to pay close attention to the shapes, the colors, and other details. So we're having to hold a bunch of little aspects of the details in our mind. And again, like you said, then on the real jigsaw puzzles, the ones on the table, tangible, we also have to manipulate them. And so it also helps with spatial reasoning. Both online or actual puzzles do that. But again, it just enhances it, that you're having to look for all these fine details and figure out where they're going to fit. And I assume, I'm not going to use the right words here, but for some of us who go beyond just kind of your standard puzzles, like doing a round puzzle, the pieces are not consistent shapes, or doing one that they don't just cut on a normal puzzle grid, that they make them very odd shaped and you have these little teeny pieces that look like they're not going to fit anywhere. You can't tell which ones are the edges and which ones are not edges. I bet those are even more helpful in, our spatial reasoning skills, our attention to detail, problem solving, because they're not just intuitive. They don't just click into the place. You really have to be able to kind of figure something out. Doing jigsaw puzzles can help reduce stress. Who doesn't want that? So, talk about lowering cortisol. Doing a puzzle can be that for people. Unless you get really frustrated doing puzzles, then maybe not a good thing to do when your cortisol level is already high. Another thing that to help with the stress level is that putting together a puzzle encourages mindfulness. You're focusing on something that's right here. They actually require quite a bit of focus. And so while you're focusing on that, it's harder for your mind to be off on all of these other thought processes. And for me, for example, reading doesn't do that, because if I'm reading, I have to keep going back over the same paragraph 12 times, because while I'm reading or even listening to a book, if I'm thinking about other things that are stressing me out, I'm not actually hearing what the book says, or I'm not computing the words that I'm reading. So jigsaw puzzles can actually be really helpful in encouraging us to drop into the present moment, and that allows our nervous system to calm down some. So anyone looking for stress relief, if you're not a jigsaw puzzler, might be something to consider.
I wonder if that's why. I was just thinking while you were saying that about your mind. Your mind tends to wander when you're listening to an audiobook, for example, and how jigsaws keep you in the moment. I wonder why that's why they pair well together. I don't know if you find that, but I do. Like you mentioned that I spent yesterday afternoon doing jigsaw puzzles. I spent yesterday afternoon listening to a particularly enjoyable audiobook and doing a jigsaw puzzle. And I was very focused on both. So it must be using different parts that you can do those two things together. One doesn't interfere with the other. And I suppose doing the jigsaw keeps you in the moment, keeps you in that place, but it doesn't stop you absorbing what's coming in from the audiobook. I don't know whether you find that as well, but I find they go very, very well together.
I do actually find that. And interestingly, as I was just kind of doing some searching on the internet, I don't think any place I looked at said anything specific to that. But here's my guess. Listening to an audiobook while I'm trying to write something, let's say, for example, write an email.
Oh, I can't do that.
Doesn't work.
No.
Because both of those are requiring the language center in our brain. And it's hard to multitask using the same center.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's hard to text someone while someone's talking to you. Like you can't listen and write at the same time. But all of the skills that you're doing while you're doing a jigsaw puzzle are not really using the language part of your brain. And so listening and taking in a book, a podcast or a book does work, because now again, I'm really not stressing out thinking about other things, because the language center of my brain is listening to the book, and the problem-solving, analytical, detail-focused part of my brain is finding pieces to put together. So yeah, I think that's why they do really pair well. There's almost like no other space for your brain to be, but your brain can be in those two places at the same time.
Good combination.
Yeah. Doing jigsaw puzzles, well, I don't know about online, but definitely in real life, improves fine motor skills. So it kind of requires careful work to fit them together. You know, again, maybe this is even more so in real time, not on the computer.
Yeah.
Because like you said, at least on the website you and I use, once you just get the piece to the place, it kind of clicks in. But when you're doing it by hand, you actually have to place them. And I've been doing a few puzzles lately where, let's say it's the edge, the border pieces, and the whole border has the same pattern on it. And the pieces are so similar that it appears that they go where you're trying to put it, but it really doesn't. And shockingly, in order to kind of test it, I have to turn it over and see if there are any gaps where I don't even know what you call those things, but where the round piece fits into the round hole. And then I can see there's a gap. I'm like, okay, from the front, those look like they fit. But again, the whole pattern across that border is exactly the same. So they actually help us improve our fine motor skills. So the last big benefit that I'm going to talk about, and then we can discuss just our experiences, but is that jigsaw puzzles are great social connections and building connections. Whether that means you're doing the puzzle with someone or other options. And I didn't know this, and this might be something for me. It was good that I didn't know it, and I might want after this episode to pretend I don't know it. But there are places on Facebook group and Reddit and other places where there are groups where you can join conversations with other puzzle enthusiasts. So you can share photos. Like I always think I'm going to share them with you. You can see what other puzzles people are working on. So again, after this episode, I'm going to erase this from my mind that it's possible to go and spend more time focusing on puzzles. But as we know, for many of us, you and I met through an online group. And so even doing that may be a great way of making social connections. But then in the kind of live version of doing puzzles physically, you can do them with other people. You can have conversation while you're doing them again, because language portion of your brain versus these other portions. And I know for me, this has been a big part of it. And I spend a lot of time doing them in isolation, but puzzles were really big for me with my mom. It was something that my mom really enjoyed doing. Like my mom didn't really enjoy playing games, but she really enjoyed doing puzzles. And even in the last couple of years of her life, when I would go visit, we would get a couple of really hard 1,000-piece puzzles, put everything out on the table, and we would just spend hours, and we were never comfortable. Like your back would feel like it was breaking, and we were miserable physically, but we couldn't stop. And it was really a good way for us to spend time together. And then more recently, my partner and I moved to a new place, and, we've been making friends. And this other couple, one of them is a huge puzzler. Like they love doing jigsaw puzzles. And so oftentimes we'll do dinner together, and then the four of us will work on a puzzle together for hours. And it's just great conversation time. I know everyone's thinking, oh my gosh, she lives such an exciting life. And they once had friends visiting. And so 6 of us were working on the puzzle. And so again, just lots of great conversation while you're doing this task. So for me, the social part of it has become important again as well. But like I said, a lot of my puzzling is still done totally alone. But it can be for me, it can be a great activity to do with other people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what kind of puzzles? Because I have a feeling we have very different tastes when it comes to puzzles. The kind of puzzles we like to do, the picture, I suppose, on them.
So one thing, I love really complex puzzles. Not complex, maybe. I love puzzles that are very difficult in that almost all the pieces look somewhat similar and you don't know where in the heck it's going to go. And one of my favorite ones that my mom and I did, I took a picture. I probably still have it somewhere on my phone, but the whole picture was pencils all lying right up against each other with like no gaps anywhere. And they had different writing on them. They were different colored pencils. They had different colored erasers or whatever. Just like, I don't know, 1,000 pencils all lined up. So I was like, wait, I think this one has a little bit of yellow. Oh, wait, where are the yellow? I loved doing one that's really complicated like that. I don't like doing ones that have a very large portion of the same color. So like if it's a scene of the ocean, if there's like, a third of it that is just blue, I don't really enjoy that. Because it's like, okay, where is one more blue piece going to go? And now where's this blue piece going to go? So I like things that are kind of busy.
That's funny because the two things you've said there don't seem to go together. When you said you kind of like them really complicated and for it kind of all to look the same, so it's really challenging. But then you don't like areas where it looks all the same with one colour.
A plain color. Like if it were just a whole puzzle of blue pieces, I wouldn't really be interested. But I did this puzzle recently where it's going to be kind of hard to explain, but it was basically a person and they were very small in the picture. But the whole wall, the whole rest of the puzzle behind them was a graffiti wall that was white with red letters.
Right.
The whole thing. So all of those pieces look very similar, but there is a pattern.
I see.
But the pattern of matching blue and blue and blue and blue, that doesn't do it for me. So yes, repetitive pattern can be good. Now, my friends and I, when we work on these together, one of our favorites seems to be, because again, we're navigating different people's interests, puzzles that we refer to as they have kind of patchwork, that there are almost like squares that if you're focusing on this one and then this square will fit there. So for example, we had a puzzle that was all of the national parks in the United States. And so it says the name of the park on it, and it has a border in a certain color. And then it, let's say it's a park where there are a lot of bears. There's a bear on it, but then there's another national park that is in the ocean,
Yeah, I see, yeah.
So it's almost like, well, I can work on Glacier National Park and see where that fits together in relation to this. Yeah. So we call those kind of patchwork puzzles.
Interesting.
What do you like?
Well, I was thinking when you first talked about, that was why I was trying to get you to refine what you were saying. Because when you first started talking about it, I was thinking I like the opposite. I don't like ones when there are too many pieces that look similar. So same as what you were saying. So if there was a lot of white background, for example, and I'll do them if I really like the rest of the puzzle, but I get a bit frustrated with that. And I've been known to finish a puzzle because I can't be bothered to do that bit, because the only way then I have to sort all the pieces into their shapes. So all the ones that have 4 bits sticking out, all the ones that have 4 bits going in, all the ones, you get the idea. And they're all arranged all around the edge. And then I have to take them and put them into the places that I don't like those bits as much. The ones that I really like are, I suppose, almost what you're saying about with the patchwork, but not quite. I like the ones that look like a pattern or something where very distinct areas. So they're things like all sorts of different color paint pots, or a line of different kind of pattern socks on a washing line, or something that's very distinct, but something distinct little parts that you can pull from different places, like, paint splashes across, or a sort of rainbow effect of pencils or whatever it is. So I'll get the edge in, and then I'll pull all the blue ones into a place, and I'll make the blue bit, and then I'll pull all the pink ones, and so something like that where I can see those distinct areas, and I can very quickly go around and identify and pull all the pieces of the different areas together and put it together like that. Or where there's something distinct where I can form if there's a dividing line somewhere, that very easily identifiable pieces that you can put that bit together, and then you can work on other bits. But yeah, I do like things with distinct areas, I think, that I can work on. I don't like it if there's too much that's the same. So if it's something like a landscape, it has to be quite busy, something with distinct colours, or something that makes it easier to differentiate.
I agree. I think we share that interest in that. For example, a landscape, I want there to be an area that is trees, an area that is sky, an area that is a bridge, and then sand or whatever, because it's like, I'll look for, how do I complete this area right here, rather than, where does this piece go? It's like like you said, you have distinct areas. I like puzzles that maybe, for example, have 10 hot air balloons on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and so, okay, I'm working on this one. Oh, I think that one goes over there with that other balloon. Or like you said, maybe an image I'm picturing is that row of houses in San Francisco that is just kind of the iconic postcard of San Francisco. There's a pink house, and there's a yellow house, and a light green house.
Yeah.
Again, because you can kind of say, I'm working on the pink house right now. I don't need to look at those other pieces. If it doesn't have pink on it, I don't need to look at it right now.
And I guess that also works with when you were saying about the way dopamine works. It's easier to get some wins that way, isn't it? Rather than it being too bitty, you get that goal of, right, I'm going to get that chunk there.
So I think both of us, as we've been talking about it, have found that we need to do with puzzles what we need to do with some other things that activate dopamine is we have to have boundaries. So maybe saying, I can work on this puzzle for 1 hour and I need an alarm that will say, okay, you have to get up. Because otherwise I'll be thinking in my head, I know, but I just have to finish this section. But as soon as I finish that section, I see that it's started me toward the other section.
Yeah.
And then I want to finish that section too. And then sometimes it will be, but there's only 25 more pieces. I can't go to bed now. And I think it's going to only take 2 minutes and it takes another 45 minutes or an hour to get those last 25 pieces in because, of course, they're the most complicated ones. So I think as with many other things in our life, and you and I, of course, have shared conversations about doing that with food, but I feel like we're both working on figuring out how to do that with jigsaw puzzles and these other apps that you talk about is getting the benefit of them, whether it's serving as a distraction or relaxation or whatever we're using them for, but not then allowing them to interfere with the other stuff that we want or need to be working on.
Yeah, and I think different kind of games and puzzles that you get on these apps have a different level of addictiveness, as it were. I've signed up the colouring one I do is frustrating in that you have to watch an advert before you can play the next puzzle. But often, the games look quite good. So I've often downloaded the games. But those, and I don't know why, I don't know what the difference is, but I get so wrapped up with them that I end up spending way too much time, but I realize it and it's right, delete the app. The app comes off. Those games I mentioned, they're quite quick. I know they don't take much time. They're fun to do, part of a daily routine. They're not eating up much time in the day. That's fine. The colouring app, for the same reason, has stayed on there. That's one that I haven't deleted. Almost every other app that I've downloaded, I've had to delete again. And the jigsaw puzzles, to a certain extent, you can dictate how much time you're going to spend on. If you know that you can't really walk away from it until you've completed it, you can change how much time you're going to spend by deciding how many pieces you use. So it's controllable.
Mm-hmm. And for example, a few weeks ago, we were working on remodeling and I was not doing the work, but it was really disruptive to the home and things. I don't think I did any jigsaws during that time. And then when I logged on, there were like all of these recent puzzles that I had not done. So I think I'm still catching up on some of those. So there are times when I'm not doing them at all and then return to it. And I think some of those word puzzles or word games that you talked about, for me, it depends on whether I do, like if they have a free daily one, that's one thing. But if I can download the app and play that waffle game all day, then I'm in trouble. So it's for me a big difference, like Wordle. There's one puzzle to do today and you're done until tomorrow. But there's an app where you can just do Wordle after Wordle after Wordle. That's where I get in trouble with things like that. Some of them I need external parameters for because I don't manage the parameters myself.
They also lose some of their attraction, though, I think, once you can access as many as you want. It's not quite as fun as just being given your daily dose. I think there's lots of benefits for just being given one a day.
And interestingly, the social aspect of that, when all of your friends are doing Wordle and you're going to get to find out how they did and you're going to share how you did, if you're doing the 14th round of it for the day, you're not sharing that with anyone. Like, woohoo, look what I did. They're not in on it. But for example, Wordle, I think, was so gripping for so many of us because, well, so-and-so got it in 3 guesses. Let me see how I can do. And then I can't believe it took 5 guesses to even get this much. Or look at this. I got this on the second guess. You know, again, it brings the opportunity for social connection. Whereas the app, just doing as many of them as you want, you kind of lose that social connection piece.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there you go. That was fun talking about jigsaw puzzles. And yes, you're right. It's good that you can think of some of the benefits of doing them and not just feel guilty or thinking that you're wasting your time doing them.
Absolutely.
And I must admit, I was thinking as I was, doing a couple of puzzles and listening to my audiobook, I thought, I'm doing two things at once.
I'm certainly not wasting time. I know I'm not much of a checklist person, but for some people who are checklist people, getting wrapped up in audiobooks and puzzles might mean I'm not getting to check these other things off of my checklist. And so they probably monitor their use of them better than I do. So my hope is everyone, if you're not already into jigsaw puzzles, you might check it out and see if it's something that has some immediate benefits for you, also while kind of absorbing some of these benefits that we talked about today, Daisy.
And I'll definitely we'll have to share our puzzles with each other a bit more, see which ones you're doing. Because it might be, oh yes, I fancy doing that one.
Now watch, it's going to become a competition.
Yeah.
I could just see the two of us. All right, let's do this puzzle. We each set it for 450 pieces and we'll see who can do it the fastest.
Okay, well, until next time, I'll see how many puzzles we've done. Have a very wonderful week.
Take good care, everybody.